Hey everyone, it's Jeannie here, and today I am so glad to be joined by Grammy award winning hip hop artist, Reach Records founder, Christ follower, social activist, and somebody that I am really learning to greatly admire more and more and more, Lecrae.
How you doing? Honored to be here.
Yeah, man, this is awesome. I wanted to talk to you for Black History Month. You are one of the leading voices for my generation in Christendom. And even in the Black community, I'm just really so excited to really talk about what the heartbeat of Lecrae has been doing behind the scenes, not so much what we see, because we've talked about the music, we've talked about the books, the tours, how you raise up other artists, things like that. But your hands are in some really incredible things in the city of Atlanta at large, and I want to talk about it.
Let's do it. I'm all about it.
Okay, so your latest album, Restoration,
Mhm,
the book I Am Restored. But
mhm.
there's another part of restoration that's going on here. And I think it's just incredible that you, beyond talking about yourself, restoring yourself as a man of faith, um, you want to help bring restoration to the Black community. What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, in America, if you know the history of African American people in America, it has been a pretty tumultuous history with a lot of trying times, from slavery to Jim Crow to civil rights. And even now just the struggles that continue to persist. And so the hard part is a lot of people within the Black community have subconsciously embraced this idea that they're lesser than, this idea that they can't ever attain any more than what's been put in front of them. And I want to change that narrative. I want to change the narrative, that we are more than just superb athletes and entertainers, even though I'm an entertainer, but that there's more to us than just those categories that get demonstrated. And just to begin to help change the narrative, especially for the younger generation, so that they can see themselves as more than history has kind of painted them out to be.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And let me ask you this: how did you do it? Because it's easy to say this is what I want for you. Like
Yeah.
especially when you're talking to your children, things like that.
Mhm.
Baby, I want you to see yourself how God sees you, no limits, like that. But how did you do it?
Yeah, it was a tough road for me to get to a place like that. And I really did not come to that type of understanding until I was an adult. Oftentimes we talk about our spiritual transformation and how we have a new identity in Christ, but I think the problem for many of us is that we don't exactly know what that identity looks like or how to flesh that identity out inside of the culture that we live in. And so, obviously, I had to get over, some of the lies that were told to me, both in my community and outside of my community about who I was. And though I'm embracing this new reality that I made in the image of God, how does that manifest itself or play itself out when I walk outside and people don't treat me in that way? So that was a process, and it took a lot of therapy, it took a lot of reading, it took a lot of things along those lines. But now I think I've grown comfortable with that type of understanding, and I can give back to people and help them walk in it.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say. I'm grateful that you put in the work to actually, get to this place that you can help others. I know there's this whole thing in the Black community where, they don't want to do therapy, or, I'm Latina, so it's similar. I can't get my dad to do therapy for nothing. You know what I mean? But there's this thing where there's this bad stigma against it, but it is very helpful. So I'm
Absolutely. I
grateful.
think I think that's critical. trauma is also found in our DNA. It's transferred genetically. So some of the traumatic things that your ancestors may have experienced sometimes get passed down. And therapy is a way to process that. Therapy is a way to work through that. And especially for me, having therapists who understand, um, you know, God and scripture, and they can find a way to help merge those worlds, so that we understand that, the mind, the brain, similar to the heart, to the organ, any organ is an organ, and it's made by God. And so, there's people, specialists who can help you process that and understand what to do.
Love it. So I want to get into some of the things that you're actually doing in Atlanta, and I don't know if this goes beyond Atlanta or if it's something that you will eventually do. But the formation and support of Peace Preparatory Academy, so a K through 5 school that you helped finance, right, in Atlanta's The Bluffs. So please talk about this. I don't want to. I have some of the info, but I want you to actually unpack that. Why was it important for you to get involved in, the building of a school in the area of the Bluffs?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was extremely important for me. Let me know, can you hear me? It's some work being done outside. I don't know if it's
I hear you. Yeah, you're
okay.
good.
It's important for me. A lot of people say, oh, um, are you trying specifically to focus in on the Black community? And I would say yes and no. I mean, yes, from the standpoint that I have proximity, that I'm a figure of that community. I come from that community, but then also no, from the standpoint that I care about the marginalized and the disenfranchised in general. And it just so happens that, um, by and large, the marginalized communities, are Black and brown people. And in Atlanta, it's a Black community. So in the Bluffs, English Avenue is a historically Black community that has been just devastated, um, by so many factors, right? And there hasn't been a school in this community in over 20 years. And so these kids were choosing to just not go to school. If their parents wanted them to go to school, they'd have to get bused so far. It just was a whole inconvenient circumstance that just wasn't realistic. And so it spiked the drug, community, and drugs being sold, and just
Yeah.
everything other than school. And so we got together, and I partnered with the community to build the first school that has been in this community in over 20 years. And we started with kindergartners, and now we've gotten all the way up to fifth grade. And now it's moved outside of just a school to providing homes in the community, that are affordable but quality, because we want people to have a sense of dignity. So we're housing people, we're educating people, we're feeding people. And to me, this is the essence of what Christ, wanted us to do, is to love and demonstrate love and grace, toward the least of these as far as society is concerned. And so, that's exactly what I'm trying to do in the community.
So have you gotten some feedback? Is there like testimonies of how what's the impact? I want to know. Like, give me some of
Uh,
the goods.
it's night and day. I mean, so I mean, practically, um, my friends are now teachers there. Friends who moved here from other states have become teachers there. The kids get to see a picture of themselves in the principal, in the head of the school, and athletes and celebrities coming to the school now because of relationships, and they didn't have access to that. They couldn't see that prior to that. But one story that always touches my heart, is there was a kid, man. He was a kindergartner, just a baby, and the school had just gotten established, and he's at home, by himself oftentimes because his mother had to work, and a family friend was kind of watching him, but this family friend was a pretty notable pharmacist in the community.
I know what that
uh,
means.
yes. So this guy had a heart for this kid, and he was like, I don't want this kid going down the same path that I'm going down, but he's out here with us all day. Can I put him in this school? Is there room for him in the school? And we got him in the school. He has thrived in this school. He is, I mean, now I want to say he's a third grader now, and it just night and day difference. And he sees a different picture of what life can be. Prior to that, he was just hanging out on the street. And of course he would have matriculated into that direction. And so now, I mean, it's just beautiful to see the transformation that's happened. And then not just in the kids, the entire community's changed because the Peace Prep focuses on whole communities. So families have changed. I've gotten to see mothers who have kids there. I've literally myself moved them out of 1 bedroom apartments, gotten them their first job, working outside of in a stable job, moved them into a house, their first house that was built by my friends, and it's beautiful. And seeing those kids light up, and their just lives are just transformed altogether. And of course, it's Christ-centered school, so they're hearing the truth about God and the scriptures and their worth. So on and on goes the pattern. It's just a
Wow.
beautiful opportunity.
Wow. Let me ask you, Lecrae, why? Why did you feel like this is something I'm gonna do? I can do. Because I feel like a lot of people have really great intentions.
Mm,
Like that sounds amazing. I want to do that.
mm,
But I mean, you can become intimidated quickly. And yes, you've had success, you've had things to help in that area, but it still takes a level of something in you that's really like, this is what I know I'm called to do, not only, music and those things.
yeah, I think you know, I'm always challenged. Um, when I read that faith without works is dead, and it's like, oh yeah, I'll pray for you, but what are you gonna do? And I never forget. I want to say it was probably around 2006, years ago, and yeah, forever ago. Uh, and I was on tour with a group called the Cross Movement, and I remember we went to we were doing mostly inner cities and small communities, mostly Black communities. And I saw a place we went to, and I was just like, man, who is mentoring y'all? Who is helping develop y'all? And there was a lady who was there with all these kids, and she said, I don't have any help. It's just me. And I said, this is unacceptable. There needs to be a transformation and a change. And I made it my mission, my desire to be that and to inspire that and to encourage that everywhere I go. It's not easy. It's not sexy. It's not glamorous.
Right.
There's no pats on the back for it. You don't win any awards for that. You don't get platinum plaques for it. But it's where lives are changed. I have a kid that I mentored. I met him in the hood in Memphis. You know, he was 13 years old, and he could barely read. And I just would sit with him every day and share my life with him and show him what life could be like. And now he's a 26-year-old man, who has gone on to get educated, and uh, his life has changed. And it's because he had the visibility of someone like me in his place. And so I just want to see that happen again and again. Just be a half a step ahead of people. You don't have to have it all figured out. If you're a half a step of these kids and these folks in the community, that's all you need.
Can you speak specifically to the black man?
Yeah.
Because I do see there's the black woman, and I see it all the time. It's like, of course, it's heartbreaking, and it's like there's but I'm a girl, so
Yeah. Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
super women. I
Sure.
feel like even black women, a lot of times they have to be the ones to sometimes encourage the black man,
Yeah.
because there is that weight, there's that thing that just wants to stay and oppress.
Hmm.
Can you speak specifically to that black man? If I mean, we don't have to tell your whole story, your testimony, because we've done it before and people can check that out. But
Yeah.
you could have been that black
For
man who
sure.
felt like because of your life circumstances, you just couldn't push past to believe God for anything. Can you talk to them?
Yeah, unfortunately, for a lot of Black men, they fall victim to a cycle, And it's a generational cycle. You can't be what you've never seen. You can't become what you've never beheld. And there's tons of reasons why historically there has been an inconsistency in black male leadership in the community. One of those reasons is, of course, the war on drugs, which ravished and devastated the black community. I mean, candidly, where did those drugs come from? You got to do your research. How did they get into these communities? And then now you have individuals who previously they couldn't get jobs because of segregation and issues along those lines, quality jobs, and so they took the most undesirable route, which was becoming narcotics dealers, which they were back then they were giving away football sentences for that. So fathers were just stripped out of the home for one transaction, and now they're gone. And or addiction took them out. And so I was a victim of that. My father was stripped away from my home, both incarceration and addiction. And so that cycle just keeps repeating itself over and over again, because I don't know what it means to be a black man. I don't know what it means to be a father other than what I've seen around my community. And so, unfortunately, a lot of black women are left to carry that load, are left to carry the load of being the figureheads in the family, of being the strongest pictures. And so, we have worked hard to change that stigma, to change that dynamic, to step up as black men, as black fathers, as consistent leaders and role models, to support our women in their efforts, and to make sure that they know that they're not alone. And so, again, you can't become what you've never seen. And I want to be a different picture of what a black man is in America. It's okay to be educated. It's okay to be a good father, a present father. It's okay to go to therapy. It's okay to cry. It's okay to contribute to your community and not just be about yourself. And those are some of the things that we want to see perpetuated and consistent in the community.
I love that. And even as you say that, there's such freedom in it. You know what I mean? Like when you have to be a tough guy all the time, or you have to, feel like, you can't let your guard down. It's a lot.
It is.
So yeah, it's
Yeah.
beautiful. And I'm grateful to God that you are modeling that, and because that is going to continue to be a ripple effect. I know there's other programs and things that you're implementing. You're arranging like credit education, financial literacy programs, to really change the mindset. And I really think that that's the biggest thing. Can we talk a little bit about that in a spiritual sense? Because you even talked about it generationally and things like that. But there is this spiritual dynamic. How does that look for you when you think about it? You're doing the practical things, which
Yeah.
is incredible. But
Yeah.
spiritually, what does that look like? What's the resistance like? What does the oppression, what is it?
I mean, you have to remember that typically we see ourselves as David or Solomon when we read the Bible. We look at ourselves as the most noble characters oftentimes. We don't see ourselves as the woman who was bleeding and just wanted to touch the hem of the garment of Jesus, right? In the lowest position. And I think when you begin to see yourself as her, and begin to see the community as full of people like her, as Matthew, who was a tax collector, which is just a traitor to his community, these low or prostitute. I mean, think about it now. Like how often do you drive? If you drive around English Avenue, where we do a lot of work, there's prostitution all throughout the community. Do you see them as noble enough to walk with, to do life with, to help walk through their issues with? And oftentimes we don't. But when we as Christians do see those people, I think we tend to say, as long as I can give them the gospel, everything will be fine. And yes, the gospel is what's going to transform their lives. But if you don't begin to implement discipleship and training into their lives, you're just making these spiritual babies and leaving them out to dry. So if I've never learned what it means to balance a checkbook, and I know the Lord, well, how tempted am I going to be to go back to my old ways because I don't have financial literacy, I don't have training, I don't have help in these particular areas? it's a rough road. And so, it's like the Bible talks about, don't say, I'll see someone hungry and say, I'll pray for you. Give them food, teach them, how to eat, how to create opportunities. And that way they can repeat the cycle of giving back. And instead of the generational curses that we see, we start
Mm.
talking about generational healing, because you've taught people how to become healers, how to repair their world so they can help repair other people's worlds. And that's what's very, very important. And so we do some work, like you were just saying, with we partner with Experian and NAACP to do credit repair and financial literacy. Grove Park Association, Grove Park Renewal, I'm on the board of that organization. And that, in the pandemic, people have been homeless because they work in the service industry, and we're stopping people from losing their houses by providing mortgage payments for them so that they don't lose their houses. And that's how families thrive. So it's just taking care of some of these felt needs, so people can understand that we're motivated spiritually to take care of the physical.
Yeah, and to me, that is what being the hands and feet of Jesus looks like. I feel like for other people, it gets muddy because they think, well, in order for you to do things like that, you have to affiliate yourself with people that don't believe like you, people who
Mm.
don't live like you. And I know you got into some little thing recently.
Yes,
Um,
talk about it.
yeah, I covered your comments. You were on a podcast and you responded to it. But there is this thing where people think that if you are seen with a politician, then you literally believe everything that they say and stand for and do. And then that in turn, which is what this is my conclusion, but you can share about it yourself. It kind of they feel like it discredits you, but I mean, I would think, unless I'm seated at the table with these people, like, how are we really going to mobilize? So I don't know if that's what your take is. That's kind of what I see. I don't see how other people see it differently, but talk a little bit about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I I'm I don't subscribe to identity politics. And when I say that, I mean, in America, when you vote, you claim the political party that you're voting for. Um, I am not a Republican. I am not a Democrat. I am a disciple. And so that's the only identity I you know that's the identity that's most important to me. And in other countries, they vote for the person that they think is the best candidate to handle whatever they're expecting. They don't say, "Oh, I am this person." It's like that's not what their thing is. So for me, I'm thinking about the community. I'm thinking about how to best serve folks, and I realize there's no political agenda or party that's going to take care of all of the needs that God would have us to take care of. And
Mhm.
so if you choose one side or the other, um, you're assuming that all of the things that God's concerned about are now taken care of. And that's not the case. You're always going to leave somebody out if you have an empire agenda. And when I say that, I mean this: politics is generally about an empire. It's not about the kingdom, it's about the empire. And
Mm.
the empire's job is to build itself and to get bigger and bigger at the cost of other people, right? And that's the reality. Empire has to step on, there's always going to be someone on the bottom of that totem pole for the empire to rise. The kingdom is upside down. The last shall be first, the first shall be last. And so I'm too concerned about the kingdom to get caught up in the empire. And so when you see me with this person, it's because I have a kingdom agenda somewhere mixed in there. You see me with this person, I have a kingdom agenda, but I don't subscribe to their empirical views or their way of trying to get things done. And sometimes, they're going to call you, oh, look at you hanging out with the drunkards and the gluttons. Look at you hanging out with the politicians who don't subscribe to this and who do subscribe to this. And that doesn't mean I embrace that. That means that I have a bigger agenda that I want to see accomplished in my efforts to do work there.
In your introduction, I forgot to say preacher. Just saying. And it's interesting because some people just avoid politics altogether, or even rubbing elbows with any politicians because they're afraid of the stigma that comes with it. But if we're trying to get things done, I understand.
Always kingdom. It's always going to be kingdom, and people won't understand that. That when I'm doing a song with somebody, you're like, why is he working with this person? Oh, trust me, it's a kingdom agenda, and it's not always. I'm not always at the liberty to reveal it, and I'm sure, um, that's a tough situation, but sometimes we do have to trust that God has these people, and God is walking with them and helping them make the decisions that they're making. I mean, I could go on and on. Last thing I'll say is, imagine how John the Baptist felt when he's in prison and he's about to get his head chopped off. And he's like, so Jesus, are you going to do this thing that we need you to do now or not? Because he wanted Jesus to operate in a different kind of way than he was operating in. And I think so often where we look at people and we're like, so when are you going to do the thing that we're expecting you to do? And it's like, that's not how I've been led, but that's not how God is leading me in this particular situation. And so you just got to give him the grace.
Yeah. And I think that was profound too, because you did say something on the podcast was like, regardless what Charlie Kirk or anybody else says about me, that doesn't change what God has assigned me to do. And I
Absolutely.
thought that was powerful. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, that part.
Yeah.
Um, Last thing, church closed for. You've been working. I saw a video of you with your hair all poofy. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get that Lecrae today. You got your hair braided though.
Scruffy. You
It
got
was
the
so
scruffy
cool.
version. I was the
Yeah,
working
you
version.
that means you in work. That's
Yeah.
right. Work mode. Talk about church close for. Where are we going? Is it gonna be theologically driven, mainstream driven, heart driven, socially driven?
Mm.
What can we
Yeah.
expect?
I always look for just to be honest about where I'm at, and so wherever I'm at is gonna bleed out into the music. As far as my journey with God, um, I haven't been very. I've been in a reconstruction phase, right? I had to do a lot of deconstruction, and I've been in a reconstruction phase, and I haven't been a very vocal about what God has been showing me lately in that reconstruction, only because some of these things are new to me. And so when something's new to me, I don't want to just jump out there and talk about it like it's the gospel. You know what I
It's
mean?
wise.
So yeah, so I'm processing. Um, but I'm gonna talk about some of the stuff I've been processing on the project. Um, Also, I haven't spoken about how a lot of the things have affected me and my perspective on a lot of these things. And so I do want to talk about that. And then, I got to bring in some voices of the new generation. I got to bring in some voices of the older generation. I got to bring them together so that people can hear the different perspectives. I got to bring some outside voices in so you can hear what they're saying out there as well. So it's a combination.
Well, I thank you so much. This was a treat for me. I'm excited to just continue to share what you're doing. I feel like you're being effective, not only for the Black community, but I'm so grateful that the Black community has you as somebody to model after. And this was a treat for me today because it's my book release day and I get to talk to
Hey.
somebody who inspires my socks off. So thank you. I was like, oh, Jackie planned it the same day as my book release. It made me feel good.
Oh
So,
man, congratulations. Y'all go out and support her. Get that book. What's the book called again?
what is happening to me?
What is happening to me? All right. You make sure y'all
Yeah,
go
it's
support.
how to defeat your unseen enemy.
Ooh,
So, open those eyes.
ooh. Boy, yeah. Well, congratulations, and I'm
Thank
honored.
you.
I'm grateful for you. We known each other for years, and I appreciate your voice as well. And we need those voices writing books and being and consistently putting truth out there in the atmosphere. So keep it up.